we'll go ahead and call this advertised meeting into session. And colleagues will move through these items. And as usual, if you have any questions or concerns, please raise them. And Superintendent, of course, you have members of the staff here, and please call them forward as you wish.
Yes, sir.
All right, so of course, we have the opening of the meeting, we have the approval of the agenda, and there are no changes to the agenda as of this time. And then we have five scheduled recognitions this evening. And so 3.1 is recognition of the 23-24 Kids Tag Art Program presented by our tax collector, Ben Anderson. 3.2, recognition of Meigs Middle School archery team as the 2024 state champions in the National Archery State Program presented by Superintendent Chambers. 3.3 is recognition of Choctawhatchee High School archery team 2024 National Archery in the Schools Program state champions, high school and grand champion divisions presented by Superintendent Chambers. 3.4, recognition of Okaloosa County School District Academic Team 2024 State Champions Division II, Commissioner's Academic Challenge presented by Superintendent Chambers. And then 3.5, recognition of Choctawhatchee High School Boys Weightlifting Team 2024 Florida High School Association State Champions 2A Traditional Division presented by Superintendent Chambers. Superintendent, do you have any comment at this point?
Yes, sir. And I'll give some more information a little bit later, but as it pertains to the potential weather coming to this area, we will make a determination this morning after an update regarding tonight, and specifically to these folks who would be coming to the meeting. Definitely want to make sure that there's a safe environment for them to attend the meeting. If we have information that says that there could be some severe weather this evening, like is potentially projected, we would reschedule these folks to come at a later scheduled meeting.
All right, and so we'll be letting them know during the course of the day if that should be necessary.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good, thank you. All right, so that takes us to personnel appointments, and so 4.1 is the appointment of the principal at Southside Primary School, recommended by the superintendent. And then 4.2 is the appointment of the assistant principal 10-month at Choctawhatchee High School, also recommended by Superintendent Chambers. Section 5 is public comment. Section 6, committee and staff reports. And so 6.1 is the Okaloosa County District School Board Internal Funds financial statements for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023, presented by Ms. Perry. Thank you, Ms. Perry.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I just wanted to say how proud I am of our bookkeepers and the principals and the sponsors. Everybody has a hand in internal funds. Just wanted to show you some numbers. Oh, that's not the right one. Sorry. Okay. So in 2022, 2023, you can see the millions of dollars ran through our schools, $14.2 million in revenue, $13.5 million in expenditures. And like I said, it takes everyone following the internal controls that this board has approved in order to safeguard these funds.
So, Ms. Perry, before you move forward, and we know this, but I think members of the public would be interested to know that $14 million now, are those district funds, or what kind of funds are those?
Those are fundraisers, donations, the school activities, sports, band, chorus.
So these are monies
Field
then that
trips.
schools, parents, faculty members, students, that they raise
Yes, sir.
separate and independent
Yes, sir.
from any district funds.
Yes, sir, and those are kept at individual school bank checking accounts. And they, like I said, the sponsors, they collect the money, they put it on the money's collected forms, they bring it to the bookkeeper. Everything is handled at the school level.
We had a superintendent some time ago that referred to these as sweat equity dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Those are dollars that were actually earned.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
And I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of how many pieces of paper they're dealing with, just to be, so there were 4 example schools, but look at all schools, 27,571 receipts, 11,918 checks, and that 15,751 journal entries, most of those are basically like checks. Those are like an account using the purchasing card, and then that check, that transfer is written to go to the payable account. So that is a lot of activity in these schools and a lot of things that the auditors are going to be looking at. Because every year, we do hire an outside CPA firm to come in and look at everything that the schools are doing. They have to be they audit them based on generally accepted auditing standards, and they have to follow the financial and program cost accounting and reporting for Florida Schools Manual and our Okaloosa County School District Internal Funds Manual. And we made sure that in the Internal Funds Manual that we incorporated the things from the Red Book so they wouldn't have to look at 2 places.
Quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Schools that, I know we approved to do their own,
The outside organizations like PTO.
exactly. And so their
mhm.
audit is not part of this, they have to do theirs independently?
Yes, ma'am. They have to
And
pay
then-
for their own audits.
And then we will get a copy, we will see, or it comes to you?
It
You
comes,
get
yes, it
overview.
comes to me. And I
Okay.
make sure that everything
Okay.
is, yes.
But that's not included, okay. I didn't think
Yes.
I remember seeing their names, so, but they'll
Yes.
do their own and
Yes.
pay for it?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So when any audit can have up to, there's 4 different levels of findings that an audit could have. Level 1 is the lowest level, it's improvement points. Level 2, control deficiencies. Level 3, significant deficiencies. And level 4, material weaknesses. In the 22-23 school year, none of our schools had a level 2, 3, or 4 finding. The level 1 findings, which are the improvement points, there were 7 different areas on the audit report. One school had 5 areas of improvement. 2 schools had 4 areas of improvement. 1 school, 2 areas. 5 schools, 1 area. 27 schools, no findings at all. I think this is fabulous. The ones that have 5 and 4, we have been working with the schools. We've been doing retraining for anybody, even if they had 1 area of improvement. We were out there retraining. So, and everybody is doing really well.
So what would an example of an improvement be?
Like, maybe the funds were held by the sponsor
Mhm.
and they didn't get turned in time. Or, they didn't fill out the check requisition correctly.
Yeah.
And I
So,
think you told
yep.
me that those with areas of improvement were new bookkeepers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I
Most
would
of them
just,
are.
You can understand that.
and I appreciate that comment, because that is I would think, a significant problem that you folks have to deal with, and that would be changes in personnel and frequent changes in sponsors and club advisors.
all the time.
And we're not even talking about changes in bookkeepers and then even changes in principals.
Mhm.
So with all those things occurring, as Dr. Kelly suggested, that makes it even more difficult.
Oh, yes, sir,
for
because
us to-
it's because it's not just the bookkeeper, it's
Right.
everybody
That's right.
handling the funds correctly.
That's right.
And it is a big operation.
So when you consider how many people handle funds and
Oh,
do that,
yes.
that's pretty remarkable.
I think so. I think so. I'm very proud of them. Do you have any
And
other
you see
questions?
the, the slide that Ms. Perry put up, there looked to be, 40-something thousand, I don't have the exact number, but 40-something thousand different types of transactions in essence. And then you saw the level 1 findings, and very minimal in terms of that many transactions to that many findings in all level 1. And that is a testament to those bookkeepers, as well as the sponsors, as well as the principals and our district staff under Ms. Perry. So just appreciate that. We always want to be fiscally responsible, and this is just another example of that.
Yes, sir.
Well, and also, this doesn't show that, we're not, when it says there's a finding, we're not missing money.
No,
This
ma'am.
is where there's
No,
not
ma'am.
money, no money missing, it's just i's maybe were not dotted, or an extra signature or a deposit,
Exactly.
little procedural things like that, but money
Mhm.
was all.
Exactly, and that's what I say, it's improvement, improvements that they recommend.
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, congratulations. What a
Nice job.
a great,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Perry.
To all.
Okay. So that's 6.1, and that was for information. There'll be no action required. All right, then Section 7 will be the consent agenda. So 7.1 will be approval, 7.2 approval of the minutes of the workshop of April 22nd and minutes of the regular meeting April 22nd, recommended by the superintendent. 7.3 appropriation of District 1 School Board member capital outlay funds to Bob Sykes Elementary School for a clear touch panel in the amount of $6,248, presented by myself. 7.4 appropriation of District 2 School Board member capital outlay funds to Fort Walton Beach High School for televisions and mounts in the amount of $2,135.28, presented by Ms. Gardner and recommended by the superintendent. 7.5 appropriation of District 3 School Board member capital outlay funds to Baker School for flagpoles in the amount of $2,483.12, presented by Ms. Evancheck and recommended by the superintendent. 7.6 appropriation of District 4 School Board member capital outlay funds to Elliott Point Elementary School for Apple TVs in the amount of $2,682, presented by Tim Bryant and recommended by the superintendent. 7.7 appropriation of District 5 School Board member capital outlay funds to Destin Elementary School for flooring in classrooms in the amount of $6,916, presented by Dr. Kelly and recommended by the superintendent. 7.8 appropriation of District 5 School Board member capital outlay funds to Lewis School for clear touch panels in the amount of $4,317, presented by Dr. Kelly and recommended by the superintendent.
I'd like to make a comment that on this agenda, every board member has a capital expense there listed, even this late in the year. And you see the variety, everything from a flagpole to a clear touch to flooring. And again, I'm hoping that people notice what we are doing here, trying to do the best we can to spend those funds to help out schools in a variety of ways. And it's good to see that everybody has one on this particular one, like I said, particularly this late in the school year for funding.
Thank you, Ms. Evancheck.
And if you don't mind if I add on
Yeah.
that, and as you know, obviously, but members of the public may not know, is that this board is allocated dollars for capital.
Yes.
But the thing that I appreciate is the fact that you all communicate specifically with principals. You guys share dollars across schools, not just necessarily in your area. And the items that are on here, such as ones you mentioned, they're impactful. So just very much appreciate the work that you do with our schools for these capital improvements.
Glad to
Thank
do
you,
it.
Superintendent. All right, so we're at 7.9. Budget Amendment Number 7, fiscal year 23-24, presented by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent. 7.10, monthly financial statement for March 2024, presented by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent. 7.11, invoices to be approved for payment, presented by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent. 7.12, school donations, presented by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent. 7.13, Master Services Agreement and Letter of Engagement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Carr, Riggs, and Ingram CPAs and Advisors, presented by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent. 7.14, authorization to appropriate federal impact aid funds and make a payment in the amount of $3,584 to charter schools, presented by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent. 7.15, renewal of contract for RFP 20-01, school food service management operations, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.16, tag on bid purchase over $50,000 to the Apple Store for Education Institution, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent. 7.17, tag on bid purchase over $50,000 to Dell, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.18, sale and disposal of surplus property, presented by Mr. Bolton and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.19, agreement with BMG Money to provide a new benefit to school district employees, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.20, annual agreement for charter bus services between Sand Dollar Transportation LLC and the School Board of Okaloosa County, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.21, summer of 2024 agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of the Emerald Coast Incorporated and the School Board of Okaloosa County, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.22, career dual enrollment articulation agreement between Okaloosa Technical College and the public high schools of the School District of Okaloosa County, Florida, and the Destin High School Charter, Destin, Florida, presented by Mr. John Williams, Director, Okaloosa Technical College, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.23, agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the School Board of Walton County to provide ESE services to eligible Walton County students, presented by Ms. Kathy R., Director, Exceptional Student Education, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.24, IT Seat Management Outsourcing Agreement Contract Modification Agreement, Change Order 23, presented by Mr. Eric Mitchell, Director, MIS and Instructional Technology, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.25, Memorandum of Understanding between the Department of Defense and the Okaloosa County School Board, presented by Ms. Sharon Duran, Program Director, Professional Services, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.26, renewal of Florida School Board's Insurance Trust Membership and Property and Casualty Insurance Program, presented by Mr. Russ Frakes, Program Director, Risk Management, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. Mr. Frakes, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Morning to the board members. Appreciate your time, Mr. Superintendent. Got a quick presentation to run through with you here today to talk about our property and casualty renewal program for the coming year. Of course, we are members of the Florida School Board's Insurance Trust, as we've been since 2017. And just to review so that everyone understands, the Florida School Board's Insurance Trust is an organization affiliated with the Florida School Boards Association. We are one of 13 member districts that participate in that, and we get claims administration services, risk management, loss control services. They handle all of our claims. They have adjusters that are assigned to us. I have with me here this morning, if you gentlemen will step forward, please, Executive Director Dave Stevens, you may recognize. He has been with the trust for many years and new to the trust. Well, I should say it may be a new face to you, but not a new face to the trust. Ken Kenworthy it will be taking over after Mr. Stevens retires here in short order. So Ken has been with the trust for many years, since 2008, I believe we said, and he comes to us from Okeechobee County, where he was superintendent most recently. Prior to that, he was assistant superintendent and also the risk manager there. So he knows the trust very well, knows risk management very well, is very engaged in the risk management process. So we're all excited to have Mr. Kenworthy working alongside Dave and ready to take over when Dave ultimately retires. So welcome, gentlemen. We appreciate you being here. So just wanted you to have the opportunity to be able to put a face to that. When you hear those names, we've had Mr. Dave Stevens has been here many times, but happy to have Ken with us here today as well. So the renewal this year, we've talked about the market in prior meetings. And it's been difficult. Last year was unprecedented. It was a very difficult market. This year, that hardened market continues, although there are signs of softening there. So that pendulum is beginning to swing, hopefully, so that these prices will come down. No doubt you're aware of that on a retail level, where you see your homeowners insurance policies that are continuing to increase. That's because coverage is very difficult to get for reinsurance companies. The insurance companies for insurance companies, essentially, is what you're looking at there with reinsurance. So because of that constrained capacity, you see prices begin to increase, and that certainly we've been in that now for several years. Whenever that's the case, of course, you're going to be subject to market forces. You've got to make sure that you have a strong risk management program, and that's something that we, along with FSBIT, have taken put a lot of effort into ensuring has happened. We've seen a lot of catastrophic claims, and the trust has been impacted by that. Certainly with Ian, Charlotte and DeSoto counties were impacted there, pretty significant impact. And even with Adelia, with Taylor and Suwannee counties having been impacted. So what does that mean for our renewal? We're looking primarily at that property because that's been driving the results here of late. And last year we had to decrease the amount of coverage. It went from a $250 million program down to a $100 million program because that's all the coverage that we could get. This year that came up to $125 million. There was a little more coverage available. Prices began, it looked pretty bad at first. It was kind of couching that and looking at how that would ultimately resolve itself once we got down to the renewal, which takes place in May. And altogether, we were at a little over 9% renewal for our property insurance for us, for Okaloosa. Several of those policies decreased. Several of the policies along with property decreased. So that it resulted in an aggregate overall for the program of 4.2% increase year over year. So a pretty good result, all things considered, especially when you consider the fact that we had almost a 14% increase in our total insured values. So our property is more expensive now, or we've added square footage. So we're now over $1 billion in total insured values in Okaloosa County. So a significant amount of property we're talking about. Some of the techniques that were used last year, the Quill product, the community weighted industry loss, that was that kind of project that was, product that was used to shore up some of those coverages that were no longer available, was not taken up this year, was not necessary. It was considered and voted down in the trust, as was the deployment of trust reserves, which we did last year. Didn't need to do that. And we'll see here, looking at what that plan looked like overall after it was all said and done. And this program, a lot of this, I should say, the renewals, that all of these blocks that we see, and I just simply show you, there's a lot of information here, but just suffice to say that each one of those blocks represents a treaty with an insurance company, with a reinsurance company. And a lot of these, many of these, certainly to the extent that there's both domestic and foreign capacity here, some London capacity there that was key to being able to put this renewal together. Mr. Stevens and Mr. Kenworthy were there in London meeting with these folks face to face, and building those relationships, establishing a relationship with some new companies. That helped immensely in getting this program together. So they're to be commended for that.
Before you move on, Mr.
Yes,
Bakeson,
sir.
I have a question on the top right corner. It says 2023 values, looks like, what's that, 7 billion? And then
Correct.
2024 values?
About almost $9 billion.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what happened? That's a pretty big jump.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that the trust did is went through an appraisal process, and that was also key. And thank you, Dr. White. That leads me to a great point here to be made, is that many companies, many organizations might simply just index their properties from year to year. We're just going to increase values by 7.5%. The insurance, that's an uncertainty for the insurance company, because they don't know what that building or what that group of buildings or facilities is actually worth. What's it going to cost us if there is a catastrophic loss? FSBIT went through the process here over the past couple of years. They actually have a staff appraiser now, an appraisal software tool that he goes out and actually appraises buildings, appraised our buildings. That's why we saw that 14.89% increase, or 13.89% increase in our property values, based on the appraisals that were out there done. Someone that has laid eyes on those buildings and said, this is what it's going to take to replace those. That removes some of that uncertainty for the insurance carriers. Those markets now understand what exactly it is they're agreeing to insure, and as a result of that, they are more apt to extend coverage. We are seeing, despite the fact that we had this Ian claim last year, and Ian claim 2 years ago, and an Adelia claim last year, still got a favorable result because we are considered an attractive risk due to the fact that there are less unknowns with the Florida School Board's Insurance Trust. So that increase in values is due to that appraisal process that
Got
took
it.
place.
Thank you.
So we've taken that hit now. We should be good going forward and look at that, have that reality, that realistic view of what those values of those buildings are
Well,
going
I
forward.
knew we had some inflation, but
Yes.
I didn't think it was that much.
Yes, yeah, that's where well, you'd be surprised what you find out there just through the process of
Sure.
you getting older schools and,
Right.
and knowing well, it cost us this to build it. Well, you'd be quite surprised to see what's happened with those construction costs as we go through. And I know certainly we'll have opportunity. You've seen what new construction costs, certainly that's come through here. And you know, that has a pretty big impact. So, quickly here, and I just show this. This is we looked at this last year, and I just want to show you we've had our results changed this year. We had an increase, but still we reached an inflection point here between 22 and 23. We see that trend line going through our results, and this shows our casualty claims and workers' compensation claims. Those are the primary drivers of our claims dollars. Property is eliminated, is excluded here, I should say. But as we see that we reached an inflection point there from 1 year, and we're still, despite the fact that we had a spike this year, workers' compensation, driven largely by workers' compensation claims and auto liability. We had spikes in those areas. We had some decreases in our general liability and our errors and omissions claims. So that was good. That helped buoy that result to some degree. Certainly that has slid up, but we still got a negative trend line there, which is favorable to us, although there are some challenges certainly as we look at this next year and controlling our costs. All of these, I would point out also that with claims experience lags, you're always looking back into what's happened in history. So we see there it goes through 22. You have to have that development that has to mature to some degree. The data has to mature to some degree to be able to get a more accurate reflection of what's truly going on. I would highlight a couple of things before I leave you here this morning. Our process with our adjusters continues, where we're looking aggressively at recovering damages from those that cause damage to our properties, mostly bus accidents. People do run into buses. $224,000 recovered there in subrogation. Playground inspections, that's something we're taking a closer look at as well. We've done that process with FSBIT. They've inspected our playgrounds to ensure that we have safe spaces for our children to play. We now have someone on staff that has been trained, working on a certification. We're still waiting on a test result, but regardless, that training has taken place so that we have someone on staff that can ensure that our playgrounds are kept up. Yes, that's Rick. That's right. That's correct. Ms. Ivanchek knows him. So,
Yep, pretty well.
so and we're happy to have him do that. So that's a great asset for the district to be able to have an inspector on site that has been trained to look at playgrounds and again ensure that they're safe for children to play on. Again, I talked about appraisals, Dr. White. That's where that's come into play there. Vector Solutions trainings, those are those online trainings that take place each year. Dropped significantly last year. Fortunately, I had Krista Shea help me out and look at what's going on now. That's come back up significantly, almost doubled. It's 11,700 for the current school year. But we're going to be taking a closer look at that and pushing that as we speak with our principals, highlighting the importance of that training to create awareness create a culture of safety in our schools so that they have some top of mind awareness about behaviors to avoid mostly, but things to do, slips and trips and falls, for example. We'll look more closely at those kinds of things so that we can get some better results. Our runoff claims, those claims that happened before we were members of FSBIT, continue to dwindle down, getting down to really just a last remaining few. We're down to less than 20. And before I leave you, again, just want to highlight some of our schools that have done some excellent things there. Some great work at our elementary school levels with Shalimar, Antioch, Wright Elementary, and Choctaw High School are two of our most improved. But look at our middle schools there with Destin and Meigs, 0 claims. That's an excellent result. So we'll be recognizing those folks, those schools, for distinguishing themselves and contributing to that culture of safety in their schools. So we really appreciate their efforts. Any questions for me this morning before I leave?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Frakes, if you can go back 3 slides.
Yes, sir.
3 slides. Right there.
Yes.
So casualty and workers' comp.
Correct.
So I see 21, 22, we spiked up.
Right.
Now go to the next slide, please.
You wanna go
And-
back to-
No, no, no. go.
Okay, yes.
So Vector Solutions. I
Right,
noticed
yes,
20.
absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Mr. Stevens may have a comment about that.
So for.
He can speak to this very well. Those comments are ones that I take from his
No, no,
report.
no, no. And the reason why I bring this up, I think that's a direct correlation there that, with our part, the Vector part is the training part of it, and for the employees to be able to take part of that. And I'm glad to hear that we're back up to around 12,000, you said? getting
Correct.
Close to it.
Correct.
But I just want to point out how important it is. The Vector training is to helping employees better understand how they can work.
Anytime you look at the data,
Yeah.
okay, the more training that you give them, the more you keep safety in front of them, the safer they are. And it's not just the students, okay, it creates a safety culture, which is good for your community,
Right.
everybody that steps on that campus. So the more training that you give them, and the data will just show this, your claims are gonna go down. And workers' comp is a huge cost to you.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's one of those hidden costs that nobody thinks about, but it's day to day. So if you really pay attention to it and you start working on it, which I want to compliment the superintendent and Russ and Tim, you guys have been a great supporter of it, okay? Because before, you weren't doing hardly any of these trainings, and we offer that. It's one of the things that we offer that sometimes people don't take advantage of. If you don't take advantage of it, we spend about $90,000 a year as a trust offering you these trainings. So, and it costs us about 50 cents a training right now for the trust. The goal is for it to cost us 25 cents a training. Okay, so we want to double the amount as a trust that we do. That's one of our goals.
Well, and again, I think as a board, one of our functions is, of course, the budget and money and things like that. This is actually, and I've said this many, many times, this is one of those things that we can, with proper training and, the reducing of accidents or anything like that, that actually brings money back to us, so.
Yes, it does. It brings money back. It's just one of those big savings that you
Yeah.
can actually have that's not costing you anything.
Right.
Okay, if you do it, it's just going to save you money, and it's going to make a better workplace too.
Right.
As far as that goes.
That's right.
Another comment I'd like to make where Russ, he does a great job. Okay, it is so nice to work with the professional risk manager, which Russ is a professional risk manager, okay? And you don't get to see it because you see your own individual board. I get to see all the boards throughout the entire state, okay? Not all of them are members, but I get to take a look at all of them. And not very many of them have a professional risk manager, okay? So you have a real star here. He does an excellent job. We love working with him. It's been a real pleasure. I have really enjoyed it as far as that goes, and I appreciate the support that the board gives Russ and the superintendent gives Russ. I think he does a great job, and I just wanted to say kudos to Russ.
Hey,
Well-
thank you. I'll take it.
Well, real quick, Dave, while you're standing up there and board members, again, I always say I'm honored to be our trust representative. But Dave, I want you to know personally from me how much I appreciate your leadership and all that you've done in the time since we've been a part of the FISBIT organization, and the fact that you do come every year. I always invite you, and I know Russ does, and the superintendent, we all invite you, and you make it a point to come up here and visit us. Says a lot, and I know Ken is back there.
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Ken is going to do an awesome job. Board members,
Already is,
I
yes,
can
absolutely.
tell you,
Yeah.
Ken is already
Hit the
making
ground
an
running,
impact, yes,
absolutely.
so.
Yeah, he brings some enthusiasm to the job. Again, I'll be honest with you, as you get older, I beat this horse enough, to where it's really nice to have. And we have more school people in the organization now.
Yeah.
As far as it goes, when I first came in, I was the only school person here. And you have to relate the insurance industry and the school system. They're two
Right.
totally different things. So it does help quite a bit when you have school people actually working in the organization, which now we have 4 school people working in the organization, which makes it better. Okay? And I appreciate everything you've done for us, Mr. Bryant. You came to the meetings, you participate fully, which is a blessing.
Absolutely.
I do have a question for Russ,
Yes, ma'am.
back on the property
Yes, ma'am.
part. Can you address, and you and I talked a little bit about it on the phone, we've come a long way in construction, so we've
Yes.
added to our buildings.
Right.
This board has purchased property. Can you kind of just give a real quick, I know that can get very intense and complex, but how you keep up with that to make sure that we have everything covered as we're building
Yes.
these, we have almost all the multipurpose buildings are
Right.
done. We keep adding, so we have to have that coverage.
Correct. Everything, all spaces are listed on our schedule of values, and that's one thing that we spend a great deal of time on each year, going through that with the broker for the trust, Alliant, and Fisbit staff appraiser. Mr. Wilder goes over that with us, and we look at that. Everything's reported to us whenever something, we have a new building that's acquired. For instance, that's just happened here recently with the CTE facility that was acquired. So we work in conjunction with a broker to make sure that we've gotten all the appropriate coverages in place and that we've appropriately covered it. For instance, there's nothing in that building, so we're not going to put a ton of contents there because there's no value really there. So we put a minimum amount of contents value, and with the understanding that, hey, we'll go back and address this. I spoke with Mr. Williams, and we had to ensure that he knows, hey, let's make sure that once equipment starts showing up, let us know so we can work with our broker so we can have the appropriate level of coverage in place. But yes, we spend a great deal of time each year looking at that. When that renewal cycle begins, we're going to look at those spaces to ensure that that we're covered appropriately. Granted, there is still work to be done there with our property in the open, for instance, where you've got, because everything is on that schedule of values. Every bench, every flagpole that we just acquired at Baker there. So
Yeah.
all of that stuff is listed on
Get the
there.
flagpole
So
covered, yeah.
that's right. It's all listed. So that document is really what drives anything. And we've seen that as a trust, we've seen that borne out in when a claim happens, when an Ian level claim happens, all of those things become critical. So, and there are a lot of lessons learned that we're trying to apply here. We've still got some work to do, frankly, but we know what those challenges are, and we're working with Fisbit, those resources, the folks there, and our personnel, different departments within our district to try to meet those challenges.
Because it's changing, we're moving rapidly now, and things, I wouldn't say weekly, but, monthly or so, we're adding
Yes.
to that, once we finish it, it
Right.
becomes our property. Yeah.
Correct.
That's one of the reasons we added the full-time property appraiser, just so you're in a continuous property appraisal now.
Right.
Okay, before you used to get property appraised every 3 years or 5 years. There's too big a gap now in that, so you can't do that. So we have an internal person that Russ reports all that to. We are, every year you get it, okay? It's not every 3 or 5 years. Now you're in a continuous appraisal cycle, so you always know what your property is worth. And with E2 value, you know how inflation goes up, but it can also go down. So your property values may, theoretically, if you don't keep building, okay, your property values may go down a little bit as inflation goes down because it's inflation indexed. Okay, it's not static. Okay, it's inflation indexed, so that you know that.
It's a lot to keep up with, isn't it?
It can be.
Yeah. Thank
Any
you.
other questions or comments?
No,
We appreciate
very
your
good.
time this morning.
I
Yeah,
do.
Mr.
I
Brown.
have
Yes.
one comment for Mr. Chambers, and Russ, if you'd stay right up there. So, at our last FISBIT meeting, Russ and I gave a presentation to the
Yes.
rest of the trust, and as Dave said over there, we are fortunate that we have Russ Frakes as our risk manager, because he is a professional risk manager. But the one thing that I was honored about was the fact that they chose our district to talk to the other districts
Yes.
about how they can bring risk management to the forefront. So, Mr. Chambers, I do want to say thank you, because I know we talked about this a few years ago about having Russ come up and speak, because as the representative, who better to speak about it than our risk manager? I mean, I can sit in here and send y'all an email or something, saying or do a report here, but having Russ come up here and actually speak about it, because he is the professional, I think that hopefully that has helped y'all have a better understanding of what FISBIT is all about, and that we have been the model district for
That's
that.
right.
And
Yes.
our hope is, and I know Ken thought the same way, is that, not saying other school districts don't necessarily do exactly what we do, but hopefully all 13 members will have this type of
Yes. And after
meeting.
that, you're exactly right. And after that, I had some of those member districts reach out, and they are doing
Yeah.
as we are. So they're franchising this Okaloosa model, so.
But I do want to say thank you to Mr. Chambers
Yes.
for, helping us get that out, and to the rest of the staff that's involved with that. So
Absolutely.
thank you, Mr. Chambers. Thank
All
you,
right.
Mr. Frakes.
And I would say, so it's like Mr. Bryant, this board, just like health insurance, was a priority. You've also made property and casualty a priority, and this is something that many folks don't necessarily think about in the school district. But Mr. Frakes and his team, they've done a great job on the health insurance side. BOG has done a great job, but FSBIT has been a great partner with us. Mr. Stevens has done a great job communicating with Mr. Frakes, who we all know the value of Mr. Frakes, and we know Mr. Kenworthy coming in is going to do a great job as well. But we just very much appreciate that partnership and the work that you do to help us be as effective as we can be.
And Superintendent, I'll just say that you're right. I don't normally think about it, but I'll tell you this, after I saw what Hurricane Michael did to Bay County, I sure am feeling good that we're blessed to have the coverage that we have, because that was a nightmare, okay?
Yes,
Well,
sir.
and I can comment real quick on how fortunate we are, because when Ian hit the southwest part of the state, Charlotte County was already a member, but we had just approved DeSoto County like about 3 months before that storm hit, or even 2 months before that. But to hear from the people of DeSoto County, the school district there, they were very fortunate. It was so impressive that districts from around that were hit just as hard, if not harder, they didn't have FSBIT, and they were like, hey, how can we be a part of FSBIT? Because we had boots on the ground, I mean, within 24 hours after the storm hit, getting things up. And of course, the governor was very adamant that these schools were going to open within a certain amount of time. And I think because of our forethought with FSBIT, how we had people on the ground, we were able to do that. So I think Dave's going to comment on that.
Within 48 hours, and you could ask the personnel down in Charlotte County and DeSoto, we had over 900 people on the ground recovering those schools. Those schools recovered faster than anybody else that was affected by that storm. And the same thing with Avdalia that we just had. We partner with a company, okay, that actually comes in and manages all of this for you. Okay, so we know the district doesn't have the ability to do that. Okay, that's not your mission. Okay, your mission is to educate kids. Okay, our mission is to make sure that you have the ability to educate kids. So we contract with them, and they do an excellent job. Okay, it's Synergy. Right now, we're working with a company called Recovery Management, which is a branch of them, because they've realized now schools are different, so they want to have a focus just for schools. So we do have a company that will come in and manage that thing for you and have people here instantly, just about, as quick as you can get here. As soon as we can clear the roads, and sometimes they help the government clear the roads too, so that they can get into the schools.
Wow. Well, that makes me feel better about our conversation.
Yeah.
And I was just about to add to that, based on that conversation, is storm preparedness. As you know, we're about to be in the hurricane season, and there are some who say that this could be a more active season. Mr. Meyer has been working with Mr. Frakes on storm preparedness and others, and they will be giving our board an update at an upcoming board meeting on exactly where we are and what we do for storm preparedness.
Good, very good.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's not if you're going to get hit in Florida, it's when you're going to get hit
Yeah.
in Florida.
Right.
And that's just the reality of
That's
where we
right.
live.
Right.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything else? All right. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Frakes. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so that brings us to 7.27, request to advertise a public hearing for instructional materials, science textbooks adoption, presented by Mr. Gore and recommended by the superintendent for approval. And then 7.28, request for course code adoption for the 24-25 school year, presented by Ms. Gillis, specialist curriculum, and recommended by the superintendent. That brings us to Section 8, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations. 8.1, information only, employees on admin leave. 8.2, information only, deferred retirement option program. 8.3, out-of-field report for the 23-24 school year, presented by Ms. Duran and recommended by the superintendent. 8.4, waiver of the OCEA master contract requested by the Okaloosa Technical College to adjust the standard work week for the 24-25 school year, presented by Mr. Williams and recommended by the superintendent. 8.5, request to double fill the program director of maintenance, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. 8.6, request to double fill the Program Director of Transportation presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.7, employment separations presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.8, personnel recommendations presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.9, employee transfers presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.10, employees suspension presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. And then 8.11, leave without pay presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. There are no items on the discussion agenda at this time. That brings us to Section 10, Construction Program Owners Representatives Business. 10.1, Program Status Report by the Board's representative to the construction program.
And
Dr.
we have a
Kelly?
meeting immediately following this one, so
All
I
right.
should be able to give you some highlights this evening.
Awesome, thank you, ma'am. All right, 10.2 is action item, program number 6, task order number 42, time and material for prior middle school flooring replacement, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent. And then 10.3, program number 6, task order number 39, GMP for district-wide paving projects, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent. That brings us to your business, Mr. Attorney.
No report this morning.
All right, sir. Superintendent, your business?
Thank you, Dr. White and Board. I do have a few items,
Okay.
and then one presentation by Mr. Meyer, who will continue to give updates on where we are construction-wise across the district. And I want to start off by saying, can you believe it's the last school board meeting while students are still in session? And and you think about this school year going all the way back to August, where we said, it seems like school years continue to go by quicker and quicker. But so much has happened this year, and I do want to say Mrs. Card is doing a great job. She is creating an annual report that's going to be ready at the end of this year, which is going to highlight both in print and in media. That's going to be able to go out to families and to the community to show what has happened over the course of this year. So very proud of that. I've seen the draft, but the final draft is coming soon. But you think about, I've said public education is changing. There are a lot more demands on educators. There's a lot more accountability on educators. There seems to be, testing and other things. And I do want to say, when you look at what our teachers do, what you look at what our educational support professionals do, what our administrators do, what our district staff does, it's really nothing short of remarkable. And just couldn't be prouder. A lot of great things have occurred this year, and there'll be more to come. As you know, we're in the testing season, and just very much looking forward to all of those results. But from state championships to individual members to band, chorus, to our CTE programs, and so much more. And then even looking at these end-of-year theater programs, just so much occurring. Do want to say, as you know, I'll be joining many of you at the graduations that are coming up. Our graduation season starts this Thursday with Laurel Hill, and then Friday, Baker. So that kicks off, and then, of course, the others the next week. But it's a special time to be able to see our seniors walk across that stage. And just as a reminder, this board doesn't need the reminder, but to the public, each and every one of those graduations will be live streamed. And it's always nice on the backside to get that data, which shows the different countries, the different states that viewed our graduations. I do want to say the Cox Hero Awards that occurred last week, to me, had a little bit of a different flavor. So we know our students get recognized on overcoming challenges, some of them significant challenges. Some of them, it's a loss of a family member, houses that burn down, disabilities that they have. But what was resounding to me last week, it was the fact of the teacher or the staff member that made a difference in that student's life. That really resonated even more so than normal. And the teacher or support professional who noticed what that student was going through and then nominated that student, it was very refreshing. There were many tears from the presenters based on those students and how far they've come. It was a precious event, and just appreciate Cox Communications for that partnership with that program. So many different things that are going on. We had Principal Appreciation Day and Teacher Appreciation Week last week. And again, I think in today's day and age, you can never thank our educators enough for what they do. I appreciate Mr. Mers really doing a lot of the background work and getting information and pictures so we can highlight and spotlight our teachers and our administrators. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that people don't necessarily realize, so let's appreciate that work. And then I want to say weather. I do want to say to last week's event where we postponed school for 3 hours, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But what I want to say is, especially at the north end of the county where there was some damage and power outages, our maintenance and facility staff, first thing in the morning, when I say first thing, 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m., our district senior leadership out there, 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m., and being able to see the damage and making sure that we had staff there to do what they needed to do to start fixing it. But even the day of the event, when we were going to postpone 3 hours, we had staff, and because staff has to be out there to see what's going on, to be able to make decisions. So just very much appreciate the staff. And I do want to say to the starting 3 hours later or to having school today. So I just want to remind our board, which I know you don't need reminding, and those who are out there, what we do. So what we do not do is look at the weather app and then make decisions on our own. What we do is we get with Patrick Maddox, who's the Public Safety Director of Okaloosa County, who he's in contact with the folks in Mobile, and they get weather updates. But Patrick Maddox has even gone above and beyond that, where he's made personal phone calls to the head of the Mobile unit that looks at the weather. They provide us information. And when I say provide us information, let's go to yesterday, Mother's Day. We were on the phone with Patrick Maddox. We were on the phone with Mr. Spolsky, Mr. Mers, and others all day long, getting the information. When this information comes in, it's not always exact. The information is erratic. At times, there's probabilities of when it will occur, how intense. There's probabilities of what part of the county that it will hit. And we have to look at Okaloosa County as a whole. And we don't just look at the south, the central, or the north. We look at the county as a whole. Once you receive all of that information, then we have to make decisions. And I understand that decisions that I make, that some are going to be for it, some aren't going to be for it. I fully understand that. But every decision is made based on the safety of our students, our teachers, our support professionals, our administrators, our district staff. Sometimes we'll make a decision and it'll be sunny out. Sometimes we make a decision, just like on Friday, and there was intensity in the storms that hit last Friday. And then today, so again, I want to give the board an update based on yesterday's conversation with the experts. And that is that the information provided to us was that this will mainly be a rain event. And the most intense part of this rain event, where there could also be scattered, severe thunderstorms, but to pinpoint where those thunderstorms will be, what was shared with us, it's across a 3-state range. And once it gets to Okaloosa, right now, based on the most recent information, the exact locations aren't necessarily there. But what was given to us is the main thing would be a rain event. Today's event will come across 3 different stages. So the 10:30 to 12:30, then almost after the dismissal time, and then this evening into early Tuesday morning. So where we currently are is, as you know, school is in session. We are monitoring the weather even as we speak right now with Patrick Maddox and making sure that we have the right information. We will put out information later today based on after-school activities and what will occur with after-school activities, to include even this school board meeting tonight, and also at the same time monitoring what happens tomorrow morning. As you know, I can't remember a time where it was at the end of last week, and then Monday, and then Tuesday. I do want to say, we do communicate with a multitude of folks, from each of you here, to the military, to the union, to the community, to the Boys and Girls Club, and the list goes on to try to make sure that we're all on the same page. We also have a communication device that's called ThrillShare, and might be getting that wrong, but we send out information to our school district and to our families. Now, of course, as all things go, there was a glitch in the system where we decided not only to let people know once, we decided to let them know 17 and 25 times. And
As long as it wasn't at 2 o'clock in the morning.
that is true. And obviously, we did not just want to notify people 17 and 25 times. There's a glitch in that system that we contract with. It's an outside source that we contract with. Mr. Mers has been on the phone with them, was actually texting with them this past weekend and on the phone with them today, because we will be sending out information today. So we're hoping that glitch is removed. However, when we have these significant weather events, it's not something that's taken lightly. We talk to the experts, and then we make decisions accordingly with the safety of our students, our employees, and this community in mind. Any questions or comments on the weather?
You got something?
I'd
No,
just
I
rather
just-
have it 10 times than not have it at all.
That's right, yeah. I have a question about, if, just in general, I get asked if we have repeated not going or something, how that works in, having to add to the school year. Can you address that, please, sir?
Mr. Horton, if you come forward, and as he comes forward, I'm glad you said that, because we do not make a decision on whether we're going to have school in a weather-related event, whether or not we have to make up school.
Right.
We do not make a decision on a weather-related event, whether we're going to lose funds. We strictly make a decision on weather-related events based on the safety of the students and our employees in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. And of course, that being said, when we do have a decision to make with regard to shortening a school day or closing schools for a day, Wendy Reserve, who runs our MIS reporting and FTE department, we always work with her. And we are blessed. We build into schedules, as do school districts throughout Florida. We build into our schedules more than the absolute minimum requirements by law for seat time for students, because that's how our funding occurs. And so when we do have a half-day or a 2-hour delayed here or something else happening, we always run that up against our minutes of instruction. If we ever got to the point where we were going over, falling under the required minutes, there are processes in place by which we could petition the state for forgiveness. If that wasn't something that was approved, then we would have to go back and look at the calendar again. But we're in good shape this year for the rest of the year, as far as I can tell. And so that's one of those things that is a disruptive to add on to the end of a school year when families are already have vacations and planned and things like that. So it's built into the schedule to be able to absorb some of this.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been asked that, so it's good to have that explanation.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a comment too.
Mr. Bryan?
So, Mr. Chambers, I will just say, I was going to actually throw this in my board member comments, but since we're on it, I know I can speak for myself, but I'm sure the board will say the same thing. We just appreciate the fact that you take courage in making a decision, and I think the parents and staff of our county appreciate that too. It's when we get that call from you, I know it's you've thought long and hard about it along with your team, and I can say that I know I appreciate the fact that your courage there and your willingness to at least explain to people how everything is working to the people that might get on social media and think they can do it better and all, but you come in here and you explain it, do a good job of explaining it, and I think that the people who are watching this do appreciate that. So.
Well, and I appreciate it, and it is very much a team effort of folks who we make these decisions. And today, just like a previous event, all of a sudden during the day, the weather changes. And these are acts of God in essence, and we can't control that. And if something were to change today, we would make an adjustment if needed. So that's all I have to say about that.
Anything further, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I do want to share, I just want to thank each of the board members for our fireside chats that we had. We met with every high school, and I think you might have a couple words to say about that if so, but I was beyond impressed with our students from freshmen to seniors providing information and just some of the themes that they talked about. School start times, the legislation. The vast majority of them did not
Against it.
want
Against it.
the times to change. And we talked to them about the legislative process. We talked to them about government. We talked to them about the different levels of government. Talked to them about ways to have your voices heard in a respectful manner. So it was interesting. We also talked about half-cent sales tax projects and their interest in those. They were very much interested in teacher pay and budgetary items. They talked about life skill courses to prepare for the real world, such as financial literacy. Some didn't realize that financial literacy is now in law. We talked about ways to connect with fellow classmates who speak other languages. They wanted it to be even more inclusive in helping students who may not speak, who speak other languages. And then just their overall desire to excel academically. You know, some of our schools like Baker and Laurel Hill, they're smaller in number, so they don't necessarily have all the different courses in ways we might be creative in helping those students. So it was just interesting to look outside of cafeterias in terms of, hey, I want more ice cream bars. These students are talking about very specific, knowledgeable items. So I was just very impressed with that. Ms. Vanchek and others might talk a little bit more about the financial literacy day, the reality check, but just so appreciative of the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation partnering with us and providing our students at Fort Walton Beach High School a great experience, but you might go deeper in that, so I'm going to cut that piece. And then Mr. Meyer, if you'd come forward and give us a capital update.
Good morning, board members. Thank you, Mr. Chambers. So if I may, I'm going to follow the same format as I did with the north end, with the south end. And we're gonna wrap Destin into the central so that you will not be seeing any of the Destin schools. So with the capital projects going on in the south end, there's a picture of Fort Walton Beach High School, new multi-purpose building, and most of us have been in there. We've had a ribbon cutting there, but starting off with that, it's a big addition to that school, so very proud of that. Going back to the beginning of Program 6, these are all the construction projects that are completed besides Task Order 12. So some of those are done, but we still have some buildings that are wrapping up. But just like the last presentation, not to forget our single point of entry and our fencing that we've took some time and very proud of that. We did Florosa Elementary's parent drop-off. When that front entry was done, that parking lot was completely done. That was a big improvement to that school, so they're really thrilled with the way that turned out. Prior kitchen, that they've been using that for a year already. Going back to Choctaw High School, stadium repairs. Kenwood had a new roof on their kitchen and cafeteria. We did some other roofing projects. Mary Esther was a big tear-off, and that took quite some time, but they were all older task orders that are done. And then we get into 12, which is ongoing, and then some of these other ones we had finished up in the last year or two. Fort Walton Beach High School field house had a new roof and new HVAC. Choctaw High School had some roofing done, and that phase 1 is also the new front entry, which I'll explain here in a bit. That is still ongoing. Longwood, that was a big project. We'll talk more about that. Sidewalks and striping and some stadium repairs and concrete at some of our ramp schools like Wright. So those are all completed. I'm just going to share a few pictures. Pryor's Kitchen there on the left, Kenwood kitchen, roof, Pryor gym roof, and Mary Esther roof. As you can tell, if I had a before and after, that's quite different with these structures and these roofs. So with the weather, Mr. Chambers, we're talking about, again, the amount of calls that we're getting are just reduced drastically. So we're not getting these calls on these roofs that have been repaired. We do still have some issues with roofs, but they're getting fewer and fewer, so that's good to see. Longwood, that was a complete redo. If you walked on that roof prior to this, it looked like the moon landing. It was quite impressive to see that get repaired. Choctaw Fieldhouse had some issues for a long time at Pryor's Gym there, so those are all completed. These are the ones that we've been highlighting all year, and we've had ribbon cuttings with. Silver Sands addition, they're using that space along with the track there. Elliott Point, new classroom addition with new bus drop-off and new canopy. Fort Walton Beach multi-purpose space. There's an interior picture as well, and then an interior picture of Elliott Point's classroom with all new furniture and technology. So very proud of those, and these are all done, and we've highlighted these as we've gone along. Longwood, that was well needed, and it's been talked about for a long time in the district. So there's some pictures of the interior space that the kids are using, and the teachers have really enjoyed that this school year. CTE just wrapped up last month. We had a ribbon cutting there, so they're going to be using that space. It's really turned out well. First project that wasn't on one of our sites, but it's turned out good, and they're excited about using that as well. The active projects that are still going on under Task Order 12, Choctaw's multi-purpose building. There, the picture on the right, it's just south of their gymnasium, in between the gym and the tennis court. That should be finishing up next month, so that'll be able to use before we start school next year. Excited about that. Interior picture there, and then the entryway. That's wrapping up. Choctaw's got a lot going on their campus, not only the multi-purpose building, but the front entry. And if you've driven by on Racetrack Road, it looks interesting with the building structure that's 2 stories on the right, and the canopy that's coming out towards the parking lot. So it's going to be a big difference in the front there. That is also expected to be done and completed over the summer. Of course, they're going to be touching up some paint and some other things, but that's going to be a new drop-off in the front and new front entry, and it's going to look much different in the front of that school. So, moving on to the cafeteria buildings, the one on the left in the top, that's Edwin's. That's the furthest along. That's just almost done. It'll be done in June. And along with Wright, that's the one on the bottom right, that will also be done in June. So those 2 are the farthest along in the district. The other 4, 2 of them are expected to be done over the summer, and the other 2 are going to go into the fall. But as far as the south end here, these 2 are going to be the first ones, so they'll be able to use these going into next school year. Okay. Fort Walton Beach roofing, that was a big coating job, and that's wrapping up now, but all indication that it's holding, it's working, and even with this weather, so it's been a good project that they're wrapping up. Another one was Silver Sands. They're just about done with that, but those are some pictures of that job being done, completed. This is, over the last 2 years, our maintenance department, some of the projects that they've been involved with. And I said this last time, but just like the storm from last week, and they were working over the weekend, and we didn't get power back on to several schools. Even Antioch yesterday still had power down. They do work with subcontractors or doing some of these jobs themselves, anywhere from installing scoreboards, helping with intercoms, painting, replacing chillers, flooring. So they're involved either doing the work or working with subcontractors too. So just wanted to point out some of the projects they've done over the last 2 years, and this is only in the south end. If you've driven by Choctaw High School lately, they had a new turf grass field put on their stadium. We were trying to get that done before graduation, which it's been rooting, so it's going to be ready for graduation. The one that's red is Meg's. It's a little bit further behind, but they're having their grass field replaced as well. So just wanted to point those out. And then this is either in progress or we're looking forward to that we have a task order or we've discussed and we're waiting on funds or the timing to put these projects into place. But auditorium upgrades have been going on. The Bruner chilling piping, we're still in design work, but that needs to be done. District-wide security upgrades, Kenwood roofing, that is going to be done this summer. So we've already got a GMP and we've bid that out. So that will start. Concession stands, restroom, press boxes, multiple places we're working through. Meg's, the old front office, we're just about ready to receive the documents on that and some pricing, and hopefully that's going to start as we start the new school year. That's going to be a big project for that campus, not only the front office, but some of their gym and needed gang restrooms for that area in the front. We have HVAC projects still going on. The Fort Walton Beach High School cooling tower is ready to be done this summer. Several parking and paving projects on the south end, Kenwood. It's going to be added about 30 parking spots with a few handicap and a redesign, so that's really going to help that. If you've been to their campus in the morning in that neighborhood, it does back up, so we're going to be doing that over the summer. Meg's and Pryor, there's a task order to have their roofs done as well. We are also looking at a few other schools and in the south end, Florosa and Elliott Point, we know needs some work with some roofing, so that is under consideration as well. We've got some food service projects. Kenwood is getting a new pad to put their cooler on. That's all coming through food services, and then Pryor is scheduled to have their classroom flooring replaced over the summer. So I know that's a lot and I went quick, but if there's any questions and comments, I can answer.
It's amazing.
I have
It's
one
amazing.
quick question, real quick. So, let's see, 5 years ago, we had maybe just a few items that we were working on. So, an update like this would have been probably just a second, you would have. But some of the projects that are on there, not all of them are half-cent sales tax related items, correct?
Yes, sir, that's right. Majority
So-
of them are, but there are capital 1.5 in there as well. Yes, sir.
So when we say 1.5, so the public would know, that's the millage.
Yes.
Right. So there is items that, because we have so much going on right now, there is some items that now have been, not that we're not going to do them, they're just going to be moved back a little bit. And the reason being for that would be,
different factors. It could be that a project came up that we did not anticipate, that we had to pay for a roof or an HVAC system to get, which would push another project down the road, so.
and I appreciate you saying that, because I think, and I know Dr. Kelly, she's going to give us a great report tonight.
Yes.
And I've sat on that committee. What people don't understand is that sometimes there's things that do come up that are more vital to the day-to-day operations of that school versus something that might just be a seasonal thing, per
Yes,
se.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great points are intercoms and fire alarms.
Yeah.
We have to get those fixed, and they're expensive, and a lot of people don't see that, but it could push something down the road.
And a lot of that has to do is because we have to use just general funds for that.
Yes.
And, even though the governor hasn't signed the budget into law yet, I mean, it does, some of those projects that we are going to be using with just general funds, we might not have the money to do it right then and there, because we have other priorities on there. So I appreciate you explaining that. I know we talked a little bit about it before the meeting today, so, but thank you for.
Sir.
Thank you,
Mr. Meyer.
All right, super.
That is it.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, very good. All right, colleagues, we have board members' business here, so Ms. Gardner, I'll start with you, ma'am.
Thank you. Just like to congratulate Destin Middle School, their track team. They had an incredible season. And a huge shout out to Elijah Kimball for being a state champion and Logan Smith for placing 9th in the state. And also to the Marlin Band and Mr. Carnan, who received straight superior ratings and took home first place in the middle school band category at the Music USA Festival at Universal Studios. So also, Fort Walton Beach High School, Megan Mueller is the biomedical science teacher at the school. She is absolutely amazing in what she's doing with that biomedical program. And Fort Walton Beach High School was just named 2023-24 Project Lead the Way, PLTW, Distinguished School for its commitment to empowering the students through their STEM curriculum and career readiness. I personally know a couple of students that have gone through this, and it's absolutely amazing, this 4-year program, and what Ms. Mueller is doing, and also to be recognized as being up there in the top. Also, Mr. Chambers mentioned the fireside chat. What an impressive group of students that were sitting there with us from 9th grade through 11th grade. They were, they're questioning their suggestions and ideas. They were very involved, very respectful. And I was very impressed with one student, but then also your response to the young man that was interested in becoming the superintendent. And he was very, we would ask a question, and then he'd come back and he'd go, well, how much money do you have to raise? Well, what type of, degree do I need? And it was just exciting to see. And I know, Mr. Chambers, you were so kind and receptive and telling him that you wanted to talk to him later. But I was very impressed with the young man, and then also your response. And I did ask the group how many were interested in going into education, and they're all looking at me like, I had asked something, absolutely crazy. But one young man did say he had a sister. And that was just that's kind of the trend now that we're seeing, that unfortunately we don't have as many going into education. So mentor that young man, because I think he will be a great one down the road. But thank you for those chats. Also, I've mentioned before that I'm a big fan of Catch the Wave. And the latest edition, I know we always have parents that want to know, what can we do to help our child during the summer? They're worried about that summer slide. But there's 2 reading programs, the Barnes & Noble Summer Reading Challenge and the New York Times Summer Reading Challenge. There's information on that. So if our parents will go to the latest edition of Catch the Wave, and there is, and I know I've had some experience in working with those, and there's some great programs to help our students, and that would be excellent. And I know we're going to be recognizing some of the students at the different schools that were first place or state champions, so I'll hold off on that. And Mr. Meyer, I am so sorry, I meant to ask you earlier, but a Mr. Thomas with maintenance, do you know who I'm speaking of? 40 years of service. I saw that on Catch the Wave. 40 years, that is absolutely amazing. So just want to do a shout out to Mr. Thomas with maintenance, and I hope he's planning on staying with us for many more years. But I hope you have one of those coins for 40 years. That's impressive, and very thankful to have him. And I'm gonna wait on the rest of it, but that's for
Sure.
tonight.
Thanks, Ms. Gardner. Ms. Evancho.
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, a couple of things. Want to let everybody know that Debbie Tate, who is our office manager for Community Affairs and who coordinates all of our Public Schools Foundation, was named one of 14 Women of Honor by the Okaloosa County Commission on the Status of Women, and she is certainly deserving. Her job description, you can't even get on paper what that woman does. So I was so glad to see that Debbie was recognized and honored in our community for what she is doing with our foundation, with Take Stock in Children, all those things. So congratulations to Miss Tate. And speaking of the foundation does sponsor the reality check that you mentioned, the financial literacy. And this year, because there are now classes, We worked with Mr. Knox's financial literacy class over at Fort Walton Beach High School, and we're able to host. That's probably one of the first big events we've had in that new multipurpose building, and it made such a difference just being in that facility. It was, first of all, enough room, but it was just so, we're all just going, isn't this exciting, and looking around, everything's so new, and and that's an example. I've heard people say, oh, so you're just getting another gym. No, we're doing a lot of academic things in those buildings that we wouldn't be able to host. Sometimes we even have to go off campuses, and now we can do that. So it was exciting to get to do that. I want to congratulate Mr. Stuart Campbell, who's the band director at Baker School, because they went to Tallahassee for state competition, and Baker was the only 1A school in the state of Florida to get a superior rating. And I am so proud of them to get that, and so congratulations to the Baker band. Also, the Baker volleyball team, who we recognized earlier for state champion, got their rings the other night, and it was great to see those ladies put on the bling, which they've earned. And then, speaking of the fireside chat, one of the things I found interesting hearing from the other board members, some of the topics, and from you, Mr. Chambers, is it's just interesting that, we have a very diverse county when you talk about geography. And of course, the school I represent in the north, high school-wise, Baker, is in a rural area. But it's pretty interesting that the topics are the same, whether you live at the beach, whether you live in the rural part, whether you live wherever. Those students that we talked to, for the most part, had the same concerns, questions, and everything. And you're right, it's come a long way. I remember the biggest topic used to be off-campus lunch. Remember that? Can we leave for lunch? Well, we don't hear that anymore. I mean, these students are very astute. They think about what's going on with their future. They have some, and they also don't give us a bye. They, while they're very polite and intelligent speaking, they hold us to the hard questions, and that's good. And I know you mentioned, and Baker is one of those schools where particularly one of the students talked about not being able to take some courses that she wanted to in the upper level because of geography. She can't get to Northwest Florida State College or wherever and get back to school and all that. And I know we're working to see what we can do to offer those students, particularly in the North End, opportunities that the other schools make. But while we were there, we got to walk around a little bit and get to see the new culinary lab. And what was exciting about that is the students were so excited about that program, and talking about how they even changed their vocation plans because of the work there at the culinary. And of course, they were cooking for Teacher Appreciation Week, doing some things there. We also got a sneak peek at the multipurpose room building for Baker, which is not officially open yet, but in Baker's case, one of their concerns was they needed a new weight room, which got added on to the facility. So it's just impressive to see those buildings. So it was really good. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vancheck. Mr. Bryant.
And I've already said some comments, but I do want to comment on the fireside chat. Of course, we had a joint fireside chat with Crestview and Laurel Hill, and you talk about, the largest high school and the smallest high school. But what really impressed me, and I know it impressed Mr. Chambers too, is how the bigger high school, which of course is Crestview, listened to the concerns of Laurel Hill School. And, I don't think the kids realize, even though they're only separated by about 10 miles, the stark contrast of what programs are offered at each school and what facilities they have and all. So it was really interesting to see how the Crestview students reached out to the Laurel Hill students to say, hey, we want to help you. We don't want y'all to feel left behind or anything like that. So that really impressed me, was how they were able to interact with each other. And I know next year we talked about having it up at Laurel Hill School next year, so the Crestview students can come up and see,
Good.
The Laurel Hill, what they have to offer up there. But I will also say that students and I agree with Ms. Abanchek here, is that these students, yeah, they are a lot more in tune than what a lot of us think. And, you know, when we were talking about certain laws that were in place, you know, the thing about it is like, we're all elected, but we don't make the laws. We have to follow the laws. So I think what would be interesting is next year when we do a fireside chat is that we invite our representatives to come to at least one of those fireside chats and let them hear what's going on, because I think if they had done that, I'm not talking about ours in particular, I'm just talking about in general, they heard the students speak about the later school start times, maybe they might have said, well, let's take a look at this, you know, and, but if they got the input from the people that are actually, having to, you know, go through the laws that are enacted, again, you know, that might be something for them to take back to Tallahassee. So, and I know we have 4 great representatives, well, one's retiring, but, we have, Dr. Rudman, Judge Maney, Jay Trumbull, and of course, Doug Broxson right now, but maybe if we got them to come and just sit in one of the fireside chats, that would be, you know, something that would be good for them to hear.
I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah. But other than that, again, thank you, Mr. Chambers, for everything that you had to go through over the last 5 days. I know when we talk, it's just a matter of saying, hey, you know, we're behind you, we're going to support you. But we do appreciate, I appreciate all that you do to help us make our jobs easier too, so.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Dr. White. So I do have a few things to announce. First of all, to piggyback on the Cox Student Hero Awards, that was a fabulous morning, and I concur that all of those students and those teachers and administrators recognizing their students, there was a different level of reciprocity, of engagement with each other, and of concern for each other, and that definite feeling of nurturing of those students that was there. So I very much enjoyed that and enjoyed being there with you for that. And then about the fireside chats, certainly the students at Niceville High School were engaging and energizing, and they too had a lot to say about the late school times. And I remember back to the year 2000 when this was brought up earlier, and my daughter was a high school senior, and she said the very same things that our seniors today are saying, and our juniors. They don't like this, they don't want their lifestyle to change, they do a lot of things in that before and after school time that they don't want to have to do earlier or later because it suits their lifestyles and their academics as it is right now. And I too hope that our legislators are listening. We know too that this is a season of testing and finals week for many of our Okaloosa County school students, especially for our seniors, so we're keeping all of them in our thoughts as they undergo that season of testing. Congratulations to the Niceville Lady Eagles. They are the district champions in softball, and congratulations to not just the players, but their coaches and families as well. You might have seen or read this unique item that congratulations go to Grant Wheeler and Wes Nelson on being selected to the U.S. Soccer Coaches All-State Team and the Large Public School of the Year Coaches. I'd never heard of that one before. Congratulations to Team Okaloosa, as you said, on capturing first place in the State Academic Challenge. And this is an 8-member team, but I'm especially proud that 2 of those members, Adam Jarvis and Cassandra Price, are students from Niceville High School. And you may have heard the Eagles girls tennis team won the regional title, and the NHS percussionist Sebastian Funk is the Ben Price Memorial Scholarship recipient. He plans to continue his music education at either UF or Troy. And congratulations to Kobe Babin on his conference win over the weekend in pole vaulting. This is especially important to my heart. Congratulations to 3 brand new Hope Squad national members. And those are Emmett Beatty, Callie Sage, and McLaurin Siner. And those are all students at Choctawhatchee High School that will serve on the National Hope Squad Council this year. And they are under the direction of Hope Squad advisor Tammy Law, who we know at Choctaw does a fabulous job with those students. And I think that's especially important and apropos as this is the month of mental health awareness. And just lastly, congratulations to Mr. Richie Jackson for a spectacular production of Newsies at Niceville High School. I understand that every single showing was to rave reviews and standing ovations.
It was awesome.
And that's it,
All right,
Mr. Chair.
thank you, Dr. Kelly. And I have just a couple of quick things because my app shows that we might be due for some weather here shortly. So first of all, I'm looking forward to attending Choctawhatchee's graduation and sitting on that new grass field that I'm very familiar with. Thank you, Mr. Meyer. And then secondly, Superintendent, thank you for inviting me to your chat with the students at Choctawhatchee. You know, we asked the students, and Dr. Kelly, you'll appreciate this, how many of them they had to self-disclose, were using Chat GPT. And the answer was very, very interesting. In fact, one young man said that he had used it to do an essay, and another AI program had identified him as using AI. So whatever that is, we want to find out what that program is. But I think I try to follow that information with AI, and there may be some that say that's because I need more intelligence. But in any case, from what I understand, we've only seen the very beginning of what we're going to be looking at within the next 6 years. And so, Dr. Kelly, I appreciated your suggestion for maybe looking at some kind of policy, though, Superintendent. I understand, and you heard the students say to us that why would we limit that? Because, after all, if they could have a conversation with Socrates in real time, why would we try to stop that? So it's going to be interesting as we move forward in these coming years. All right, so that's really all I have.
So I'm sorry, could I do one
sure,
more that it's a really big one that I totally forgot. I'm sorry, I got caught up on that. I have to announce this, that we had an extremely great teacher award here. And I've spoken about this music teacher over at Flor Rosa, Miss Sarah Terrace. I was telling you how great she did with getting 50 kids on the stage for Madagascar. Well, last week, as Teacher Appreciation Week, she was surprised by the Country Music Association's foundation named one of 30 music teachers of excellence in the country. And they showed up and did a video and all this. And so she received not only a monetary prize, but this recognition, and they're going to take her up to Nashville in September and recognize her at the Country Music Hall of Fame. That is amazing. So way to go, Ms. Terrace. I'm excited to see what happens with all of that. That's quite an award. Thank you for letting me add that.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so that takes us through board members' business and moves us down to Section 14, public comment. We don't yet know. Section 15 is we have a couple of public hearings at 6:15, 15.1. Public hearing for the adoption of Resolution 24-06, approving the proposed purchase and sale agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa and Thomas Dwayne Walther for real property located in Baker, Florida, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent. And then 15.2, public hearing for the adoption of Resolution 24-07, approving the proposed purchase and sale agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa and Stewart & Sons Investments, LLC, for real property located in Baker, Florida, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent for approval. All right, so that brings us down to adjournment, but before doing so, any other business, Superintendent, from you or your staff, or colleagues, or union, anything? Okay. Well, I don't see the national weatherman that we all worry about out there, but we'll all be paying attention. Thanks a lot. Meeting's adjourned.